Good evening. This is Defacto review for this week. We will cover with you two topics of events happened last week in Mongolia. First one is about mining week of Mongolia. Second, about the official visit of Mongolian President Khurelsukh to France. The first topic. It is the second year Mongolia had organized a whole week about mining. It is organized by associations, industry, state, NGOs, suppliers, labor unions, all the related stakeholders of this industry, important industry for Mongolia. It is at such a level that Mongolia is to spend whole week for the whole concerns we have, instead of a few days that was usually they organized before. Because mining is very important industry, it has become a more significant from year to year now. Why? Because a quarter of the Mongolian economy is mining, and mining is also export. 90% of export of Mongolia, and it's 1/3 of Mongolian state budget revenue. As you see, Mongolia cannot be understand or imagine without this important mining industry. And there are many minerals, materials that have been used in this industry, but in Mongolia in particular, 8 types of minerals are most prominent or are creating the most income of this industry. First is copper. We have reserve of 62 million. It's approved reserve, tons of copper, but only we produce 300,000 tons of ore, concentrate every year. Second important mineral is coal. It's the estimated or the approved reserve is 35 billion tons of mostly coking coal, and 39 or 40 million tons of coal is produced every year now. The third is iron ore. We have 1.8 billion tons of iron ore reserve, approved reserve, and 10 million of them produced every year. The fourth one is zinc. It's 4.7 million ton reserve, and the country is only 63,000 tons are produced annually today. The fifth mineral is lead. 1.7 million tons reserve, and only 10,000 tons are produced now a year. Silver is 34,000 tons silver reserve we have. Uranium, 192,000 tons reserve, and copper, 490 tons. So these are basically 8 major minerals that make Mongolian mining industry. And Mongols believe that we are very rich in these minerals, but however, compared to other countries, our neighbor countries, in terms of copper also, Chile and Peru, Mongolia is not as rich as we would be thinking. For example, say Chile has a reserve of 190 million tons, Peru 81 million tons, Australia 97 million tons, Mongolia is only 61 million tons, Russia 62 million tons. That's reserve, approved reserve. The world total has 890 million ton reserve. And in terms of production, Mongolia is only 1.4% of production of the world a year. So only 300,000 concentrate we produce, and China is developing it further into coal, into the copper. The same is with the coal. So far, for example, Mongolia is only 3% of the world coal reserve, and today we are 0.5% of coal production of the world. So for a country of 3.4 million people, it's a large reserve, but compared with the world, it is also one of the modest reserves, possibly. Etc. You can also, we have been talking about the reserves of each other six minerals, but overall, those productions still we need to increase. And in order to have more productivity in the mining sector, we need more foreign direct investment. Though almost 80% of the Mongolian foreign direct investment is in this mining sector, but still Mongolia needs more foreign direct investment, not to compete with other countries. And though Mongolia is close to the largest market, China, but still we need to be competitive in this regard. And that's why we need more foreign direct investment. Mongolia foreign direct investment was at the peak in 2011 and 2012. Since that, it has declined. In spite of Mongolia needs more foreign direct investment. In fact, mining sector cannot go in a country like Mongolia. It's a lower medium income country which needs more money and less. It has a less domestic resources of money and not much export capacity except just the mining minerals. So during this mining week, Mongolia and all the industry related stakeholders have been talking about the problems we face, where we can improve. Related ministries, public officials, policymakers, and players have been seriously discussing the issues as how we can attract more for foreign direct investment. It's a matter of trust because investment is coming only to the country where they have a trust. Mongolia has been losing this trust for quite some time recently due to instability of laws and regulations, which was very much highlighted to be improved during this mining week. And not to, first of all, we need to have a stable business environment. Secondly, we should have a strong enforcement of a law and regulations, which is a problem so far. And the many players in the industry have been highlighting that. So Mongolia needs to get fixed all these issues and get back trust for foreigners. And in order to have this trust, we also need to have a strong enforcement of our law and regulations. And it was very frank discussions about that. And the government had shown their commitment to solve many issues. They have been bringing past some events where they have been losing and they are trying to regain the trust of foreign direct investment. And it's also, since the industry is all backbone of the economy, logistics issue have been discussed. And there are a lot of problems also. It's a matter of, for example, railway transportation. Though the country had made several lines of railways to the Chinese border, which is more importer of Mongolian minerals, but those railways are not yet connected in spite of their completion on Mongolian side. But at the border, it is not connected yet with the Chinese railways. And there are many issues because the gauge, in spite of the previous public decisions or government, parliament decisions to having a narrow road compatible with China to the southern border, somehow Mongolia made a wider gauge railroads, which creates the same problem as we do with the only port we have with China, Zamingmut, where we transfer goods from wider gauge to narrow gauge and vice versa. And the many other issues have been discussed during this week. New products were represented, introduced, and new technology changes and other potential suppliers in this way. Technology, labs, many products were introduced during this week. Hope we will have much better climate conditions for foreign direct investment in this industry, and we will have more stable environment for running the business after this mining week in Mongolia. And hopefully from now on, it will be all these discussions, debates will be helpful to have better environment for foreign direct investment into this industry, and it will be helpful for further increase of productivity and competitiveness of the industry in Mongolia. The second topic of this week is President Khurelsukh official visit to France. It is the fourth president visit of Mongolia to France. Before it was President Ochirbat and Mr. Inkbayar and Elbegdorj. All were state official visits, but not state visits. This time it was a state visit, and looks the protocol and all this format is completely different, way wider. And for example, we saw in Paris in many streets Mongolian flags, and they were all different level of reception, etc. So the format of the visit was very nice, very respectful, all according to this the France protocol of the highest state visit to France. In essence, there were several important meetings of many officials, and first of all, there was an agreement signed. It is not yet agreement, it's a protocol of cooperation outlining major economic parameters of agreement in between Orano, French state-owned uranium company, and Irknis Mongolia, mining corporation of National Corporation of Mongolia. In principle, they have agreed the parameters of their further cooperation. Orana is in Mongolia since 2009. They have discovered a uranium deposit in Mongolia in the eastern part, and potentially it will be a substantial, strong producer of uranium. They have been testing, and now the agreement is coming to investment agreement and the stability agreement, and the basis of these agreements have been agreed during this president state visit to France. The second important thing was also the organization of business forum, where some 70 businesses from France and about the same amount of businessmen from Mongolia have been participating. It was in the Small and Medium Enterprises Union, MEDEF, in France meeting, where the Minister of Trade and several Mongolian ministers have been participating. The president made speech, and the potential industry where Mongolia and France can do it, as it was highlighted by the president of that MEDEF. It is transportation, urban development, space, and tourism, where many Mongolian and French companies have been discussing the issues. And it was a good open discussions, and hopefully it will be helpful to develop cooperation of companies in these sectors. In fact, out of compared with the previous meetings, the size and parameters they have been discussing is quite high, big, and Mongolian companies are, I think, more ready than before to come to work with France and to have investment from France to Mongolia. The president made a speech there and saying that we need a sustainable, so that was the second point. The third was there are particular industries they have agreed and they have signed memorandum of understanding. For example, the Thales. There was from France a Thales Alenia Space Company. Its executive director had signed a memorandum of understanding with Minister Ochiralt, Digital Development of Mongolia. And the discussions was the idea of this agreement, memorandum is to have Mongolia to have a satellite in space. There was also agreement that to help Mongolia, in particular the emergency agency, to have emergency work, emergency release work from the air. Basically, there were several helicopters helped by French authority to help the Mongolian emergency offices before, and now they are even coming to even broader case. And there was an agreement also it's also memorandum of understanding to work in this sphere of geology, exploration, labs, etc. And there were this kind of agreements, memorandum of understandings were signed during the visit. So this is a third component of the visit. The fourth is also the exhibition opened in Nantes, a French city on the western coast, where Genghis Khan exponents being displayed for the next 6 months, introducing about Mongolia to the French and international audience. It was interesting to watch many advertisements in underground, in metro, in Paris, and many other advertisements in the major streets of the city, Paris. So the fifth was Mongolian National Folklore Music Assembly called Khur. The group was playing in Versailles Palace in the King Theater. It was a very interesting and nice concert. Almost 2 hours long concert. It was performed very successfully in the Versailles Palace. So this was an official state visit of President Khurelsukh to France. Because it was the first time state visit, it was very visible for ordinary public in the streets, that major streets were decorated with huge flags of two countries. And main roads were also decorated with this similar flags in Paris. By this format, it was very well seen and received, I think, by the public here in France. So that was a very high-level visit, and two presidents have met. President Macron and President Khurelsukh were at the ceremonies where all these above-mentioned memorandums, agreements were signed. And we do hope that this visit was an important event, landmark event for cooperation of two countries. So that's very brief about this state visit of Mongolian President to France. Thank you very much for watching our review. And we have highlighted two events. One is weekly events happened around mining, called Mining Week in Ulaanbaatar city. And second is the President Khurelsukh visit to France. Thank you very much for watching us, and I'll see you next week.